Thank God you're here. We're finally going to talk about the final fucking Mindless Show. I've got no throat left in me. It's just, alright. Let's get started. So, of course, this one was properly 100% scripted. I had the idea from the get-go to do a 100% scripted episode. Fuck knows what I had no idea what the hell I was going to do about it. Like, I was like, what the hell topic am I going to do? This came post-filming, the gaming episode and this episode were filmed after uni had finished, were filmed after we'd moved. And so I was like, hey, let's talk about Australian screen, because it's like, we're talking about Australian films because we're Aussie. I love films. I had Pierre/Cosimo with me. He co-wrote the episode with me. Pretty much all the parts with me, him, and Simone, who plays Simone. Simone. And the idea for that episode, his scripted elements were pretty much just those parts where it was just us talking about these Aussie films. The great Ben Stiller in Mad Max. Yeah. We'll get into that in a bit. I kind of feel like clarifying what exactly I wrote, but how can we break this down? Let's go with... Let's talk about the Pierre, Simone, me part. Let's just go in order of how all the events took place. So, the first part, of course, was me sitting here. Pierre and Simone arrived. That, again, all scripted events. We come in, we sit down. We had two cameras, Pierre's camera and my camera, hence the different looks. I wanted to kind of present a more kind of like reality kind of thing. Like, we still have this camera. Like, look, we even showed it on camera of us filming with this camera. Had the mics, had the setup, and it was very awkward for like maybe the first less than 10 minutes. It was just us setting ourselves up. Like, really, like that, the whole idea of the show is it's rehearsal. So we weren't going for, we'll be set up and everything and looking right into the camera from the get-go. No, we're filming it because it's us filming a practice rehearsal so we can get an idea of where we can improve. And that was just the idea there, because I'm like, we're shit actors. There's no way in hell, no offense, there's like no way in hell that we could like pull this off in one whole solid go without a rehearsal. I'm like, hey, why don't we make the episode a rehearsal? So in the script, we have Pierre, Simone, Mindless, and then Pierre, Simone, Mindless, hyphen IS, so in script being what's actually in the episode, like the one that we're practicing for. We did have improvised elements within that first 15 minutes of us doing the script, and that was just us talking about all these Aussie films, specifically Mad Max, and how, yes, it was purposely being a satire on us talking about Australian films and stereotypes and how inaccurate the whole fucking episode is, which was the point of that whole entire thing. That was the gag. And I did do directing techniques in that where I was like, I think we should stop with the accents here and there. Like, all that kind of stuff was all done in that one take, and I actually was directing it properly in a way. Like, I'd set up how we were going to do it and all that, and it was quite fun to do. Then we moved on to the second part of it where we moved over to the kitchen, and that literally the script was like a small paragraph saying they go to the kitchen to get beverages and refreshments and just talk about what they're going to talk about next. That was all the script was, so that whole thing was improvised. Which is funny because like the whole scripted episode, that whole thing's improvised. It's just us talking about whatever the fuck, you know.
Well, I don't even remember what we talked about.
Yeah, it's just we talked about the Babadook at one stage.
Oh yeah, that's right. And it being a gay icon.
Yeah, and like all this just random stuff, but again, it's still relating to Aussie film. Being like, okay, we're going to talk about this next, and like Predestination, and like Catherine Kim, and all the stuff that we'd seen, especially in class. Which was fun, just to highlight on. I was like, oh yeah, well, we know this stuff because we've studied it. And it was just fun to just chill out with them. And of course, the scripted part came back where we sat down, and then ding dong, we got the masked figure played by Sam comes in with the laptop. By this stage, my laptop had been broken, and so we couldn't even set up the footage to open up fully. I'd already recorded, so let's jump to Lachlan's part first.
Yeah.
I've scripted all of Lachlan's part on a train ride. And of course I did some redos of it. I showed it to Pierre, got his impression of it, he liked it and whatever, enough that we put it into the final episode. And that day that I went to do the gaming episode with Lachlan, I filmed this episode with Lachlan. The idea of why Lachlan is the villain is just because it really was just because it was set up in the trailer. Like there wasn't any really reason. It's just like he's a good actor. He does good improv, but I know that he's a good actor. Enough that he could pull off a villain. I didn't want him to be too stereotypical or stocky, but at the same time, I'm like, well, I mean, he's realistically just a villain who's an audience who doesn't like the show. That's all he is, you know. And it's kind of set up like he's this kind of like cult leader of people who don't like this, and it's kind of a commentary on fandoms and how like one person can lead a bandwagon against the whole group of people and say like, hey, fuck you, we don't like how you did it. Yeah, and of course, especially a recent example being the whole thing with the Star Wars, The Last Jedi, and all that kind of stuff. And so, like, of course, I didn't pull any direct like references to that. I wanted this show to be its own thing and not reference that kind of stuff. But that was the idea I had in mind. And so then Lachlan, of course, having his hoodie up, being in the dark and whatever, and it was just a weird ass scene to film. But with the lightiness and everything, it was very dramatized, and that was the point. Because it was meant to be overdone. That was the point of that whole entire thing with Lachlan. His whole character as this villain, even in quotation marks. His character is called the villain in quotation marks. Because that's just how absurd we understood the show to be. Because as much as the show episode was a comedy with dramatic elements, we were self-aware of what the episode was, and of course had written that into the script. To the point that you obviously have Lachlan pick up the script as his character and be like, hold on, I just gotta get to the right page, and then read out the line and puts it back down. So like, we had this self-awareness throughout the whole episode because, fuck it, it's a Mindless Show. We don't have to be completely, we know what we're doing because we knew what we were doing. And yeah, so when it came to doing that, so when it came to editing that, of course I had Sam open up the laptop and I just pretty much zoomed into the laptop screen and just cut in Lachlan's footage because I'm like, yeah, we could not. It would have literally would have just been Sam clicking the space bar and it just played the video, but it would not play the video properly because like the taskbar at the bottom would not go away because the Windows Explorer was not working on the laptop. So I was just like, fuck that idea. We're using the laptop now as a prop and nothing else. We can't use it for anything actually constructed for the episode, which was annoying, but I liked how we ended up using it with cutting with the footage of Lachlan, which I preferred. And you got more of Lachlan anyway by literally having him larger on the screen. And you could focus on his audio more and everything else. And of course that gave the confrontation between Mindless and the villain saying, I don't like what you're doing here, this whole rehearsal. And of course you'd be asking, well, how the fuck does the villain know it's a rehearsal? And that's the thing of it being, we're self-aware, but at the same time, the villain knows all this stuff as it is, as if like he may actually be a second half of me, like a reflection of Mr. Mindless. Because his name is Mr. Smart, I don't know. It's now Mr. Men Show. Yeah, and so it was just, that was just the fun of that, of that idea, and of it being a conflict of ideologies, and of course present in reflection from the very first episode where I have that scene talking to Brendan Michael saying this is what I wanted to do with the show, but then the question more or less became how would the audience respond to it, and it was the audience that was the main focus of the rest of the season, whilst Mr. Mindless was still trying to figure out what he wanted to do. And I like that being the whole idea for that episode. It was meant to be this whole, we want to do it like Mr. Mindless wants to do it like this, but then how it was awkward and it was hard to do even like during filming, like between shots like that was specifically scripted for like Pierre and Simone and stuff. It was very tricky to film it, tricky for its own reasons that obviously I'm not going to talk about. But like, you know, kind of trouble on set kind of stuff, you know. And it was good as overall when we finished the episode because I ended up, you know, having my scene where Mr. Mindless leaves and then we cut to a to be continued. And so this episode had been set up as a One Last Show Part 1, the written episode, with a whole intro credits and everything with this villain character being shown, or the masked figure, with all this blurred names because it's meant to be multiple characters as this villain, but it's like, who is the actual villain? Spooky, scary. And then we jump into the next episode. The show is Mindless, aka One Last Show Part 2, because I wanted to have the One Last Show being in the title, because obviously I wanted to say, yeah, it's the fucking end of the show. the dead end of the show. There is no more Mindless after this date, at least I'm thinking. Like, we'll get to that in the end. So, of course, that starts up with I've left the house, and now we're in Carlton Gardens, actually. And I just sit on this bench. I'm like, hey, I need to reflect. And, of course, Barry Berry, the original co-host, played by Costa, came in. And he was very gracious in coming in. I'd asked him all the way in January. I was like, hey, I want you to be in a scene in the last episode to kind of have this kind of like Jedi Yoda-like talking to me about the stuff. And that was what his inspiration for that part was in that scene, where he just comes in to have this kind of ideological conversation of what the show is, what it means to me, what it means to the audience, and all that kind of stuff. Him being the real reflection, because of course the show originally had this co-host dynamic, and that was meant to be the idea of like one person's probably loud and whatever, the other person's more like, okay, cool, how about this? Just more of a general calm, yin and yang kind of stuff. And so we had that talk and everything, and it was very fun to film with Costa again. That was the last day that we filmed out there on that set. And that was just really fun. I again had Pierre as the cameraman. It was just very fun to film it all. I know that some like on a lot of the shots, I liked that. I thought it was just looked really good, especially that last shot after I talked with Costa, which there was a mistake filmed where the camera stopped filming, where my character says, maybe I should do a fight scene. Of course, that I put that as the idea of like, oh, the character is thinking this, and of course then Costa just jumps in and is like, what, you want to do a fight scene? It's like, how the fuck do you know that I want to do a fight scene? Of course, if you look at it in that point of view, originally it was meant to be me saying this on screen. This mic had been recording everything the whole time.
For some reason the camera just stopped.
Yeah, the camera just, I hadn't clicked the right buttons. So that was annoying, and then edits, I had to fix that. And I'm okay with how I edited it. I think it's fine for it being, it's in my head, and then all of a sudden, how does Barry Berry know this? Well, where the fuck does he get a sword from?
Where does it even come from?
Yeah, well, he's gone, and then he comes back and he's like, you want to have a fight scene? This is going to seem a little absurd, and I'm like, fuck it, I can do whatever I want. It's my own show. Which, of course, being this whole over-dramatised version of the show that now we've properly entered in, or properly, Mr. Mindless has properly agreed to be in. Because you've already had this, we're scripting the show, it's meant to be mindless. This villain who's all dramatised to his own effect, and now Mr. Mindless is like, fuck it, I'm giving in. Let's make the show be as bizarre as possible. And then I get a sword, which my parents had bought me from Japan. And then that scene was fucking fun to do. But like the whole sword thing, again, I wanted to specifically position it so the light would be blocked out, and then I'd open up, and then boom, cut right into the next part. So I loved everything I did with Costa. I thought he was perfect in it. I very much thank him for returning to the show one last time. Then we get to the fight scene. Now these were shot in 3 different weeks. The fight scene was shot first on the same day as the gaming episode. Second week was the Australian stuff, as well as all, but I had to have shot everything with Lachlan first. So it was actually 4 different weeks technically, because it was Wednesday, gaming with the fight scene, Lachlan with his villain part, and then
as well as his gaming part,
yes, and then this Australian screen part with the whole end of the show, and then that Sunday we shot with Costa. Beautiful weather for the day as well, which is great. And so the fight scene, we just jumped right into it, and we'd filmed it. That was the second take that we did. The first take wasn't bad, I liked it, but it was more of get a general idea of what we wanted to do, and then we went straight forward, all one take, with just Sam and Noah in the anonymous V for Vendetta Guy Fawkes masks. And yeah, they were just punching and kicking me and all that kind of stuff. They did hit me, they did fall on the ground on purpose, all this kind of stuff. The camera work done by Pierre again, holding the tripod, very still shots. Very nicely done. I really liked how it was shot and everything. And I'm very big into action movies, so like, I don't like the choppy cut stuff, like, unless it's fucking stylized to hell, I don't like it. And so that whole one long take, I'm not a fucking action hero. Even though I have the jacket and the sword and everything to make myself look like it, again, that was going with the over-dramatized, overdone stuff, which I was really cooking in for that episode, especially these last 2 episodes. And so we had the whole fight scene, and then we had the second take of the fight scene, which was like this whole, like, this side-on angle, just like me again kicking and killing Sam and Noah, them respawning and whatever. And then this third take where it was more stylized shots of me with a sword, then punching and hands up. I liked everything that we did there. It was very nicely done. We had great sunlight and everything for it. It was very good. I feel like I'm bragging about my own stuff, but I'm like, I'm not the one who filmed it. He did. So I'm both appealing to him, but I'm also saying I fucking like the shit that we did. I liked the editing it, adding the music to it. I tried to add it more to the beat. I feel like I did. I'm very happy with how it turned out. And then this whole thing of like, I'm now going on to the next place. Yeah, it looked fucking goofy as shit. I understand that. It was fun to do. It was goofy, but it was fun. And then, boom, I'm now at the house, and I'm back, and I'm like, all right, look, let's have this final discussion of ideology, pretty much of what this show should be. And of course, then this whole realization once I've sat down, that Pierre and like, we had Cosmo and Simone being like, well, what do we do now? I'm like, you just sit there and just watch. And then, of course, my character... Yeah, and twiddle your thumbs. And then, of course, that's when Mr. Mindless's character had realized, fuck, my guests are now my audience. And then there's this whole realization that's like, there's more to the audience than just the people on the other hand, like, watching from the screens. And that became very important outside of the factor of what Mr. Mindless had wanted the show to be post-discussion with Barry. And that ended up being, yeah, as much as like you guys are the audience, so are my guests, so am I. Because I don't just edit this show, I watch it as well. I have an expectation from the show that I'm creating, which seems a bit weird that like the creator has an expectation, but like on the terms of what the final product looks like, but of course you have to, because you're creating it. And so I wanted that to be a part of the thing. It was kind of a touch of irony in a way that I thought worked thematically, like this whole irony of how like, oh, this whole entire time it's been a question of what do you like? Well, how about what do I like and what do my guests like? You know, it's not just about you, it's about all of us. We all got to enjoy what we're doing. And that whole monologue, I'd written most of it. I'd written all of it, except that last take of monologue, a lot of the times I had to cut between Lachlan just so I could have a breather between each line, each paragraph, because there was a lot of dialogue I'd written there. And that last part was like about 100 or 200 words, and I could not get through it for the life of me. I read the whole thing a few times. It stressed me to hell. And I ended up just leaving it as, fuck it. I pretty much improvised what I was going to say anyway. So everything that I said, I pretty much said it in the general format of what I'd written for that final episode, for that final monologue, and leaving it on the idea that the show is mindless and it can be whatever it wants to be. And I like that. I'm very happy with how the show ended. What about you, Pierre?
Yeah, I thought it was, if it can pick me up, yeah, it was pretty good to end the show. Like, or how it ended, not in the sense of why.
He likes how it ended. Yeah, that's simple points. So yeah, I don't know exactly how the wider masses, whatever wider fucking masses, are gonna watch it. Like, it's never been an overly popular show on views, but I've enjoyed doing it, especially for the rest of it. And I'm very happy with how it turned out. Yes, it's the end. I don't plan on doing it anymore. Like, when I did the end for the 3rd season, I had this whole fucking season planned out. When I came to doing the end of this season, I'm like, no, I don't want to do anymore. I want to focus on doing short films, that interview show, everything else that I could possibly do. And I did want to do this. I did want to do this with the director thing of me talking to you about what inspired me to do each episode and doing a kind of in-depth discussion about each episode. Discussion being me talking to myself.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much the point. Just me saying, hey, look.
A bit of input as well.
Yeah, so it gives you an idea of how it was like to make the show, what I put into it, what am I getting out of it. I really like what I've done. The only time I've ever made a serialized show, I should say, that's had this whole overarching narrative was pretty much Are We Alive? And that was a radio play. It was the first thing I'd scripted outside of Don't Starve, the short film that I first made. And that whole show, there's a lot of scripting to it. I put a lot into it. I don't know how great it is as of now. I haven't listened to it since I made it. But this is the only actual serialized thing I've made, and comparing that to complete contrast with the first 3 seasons of the Mindless Show, I thought it was just fun to do. And I really liked it. Would I say there was any disappointing episodes? No, not really. I enjoyed every episode we did. I think maybe the cult films was maybe just the weakest because, again, a lot of people looking at us, eyes that I did not need on me, pretty much. But I like the concept and the ideas that we put into it. And I still think that, the morning show one's my favourite, followed by the last 2 episodes, just because it's this whole summation of what the show is and has been. So yeah, thanks for watching this series with the director. If you want me to talk about any of other products I've made, I don't think you will, but if you want me to, then I'd like to talk about other stuff. I obviously can talk for a long time about stuff. I try to make it as short as possible, let's put it that way. Please, if you want to give me your thoughts on any episode of The Mindless Show, feel free to comment down below. If you want to rewatch The Mindless Show, whatever, it's all on the channel. You know what to do. It's YouTube. I'm very sure you know how to use this format and this system by now. But yeah, if you've watched all these episodes or even just this one episode, then either way, thanks for watching. It's been a pleasure making this show, whether both for me, for you, having all my guests and everyone being in it from the very first episode to the very last episode, both of the rest of it and of the Mindless Show itself. Yeah, thanks for watching.